Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Raven Lawson never expected the sentence that would change her marriage to sound so calm. Jared leaned against the kitchen counter, hands in the pockets of his tailored navy suit, and said, "The freeloading ends today." He did not raise his voice. He did not look angry. He said it the way he talked about new policies at work or changes to his team, like it was reasonable, like it was logical, like it was already decided. They were standing in the kitchen of their apartment on the north side of Chicago, the place Raven had turned into a home for 6 years. The smell of rosemary and garlic still lingered in the air from dinner. A pot of pasta sat warm on the stove, a pan of roasted vegetables cooling on the counter, and soft jazz played from the speaker on the windowsill. Raven was drying a plate when Jared spoke. "I just got promoted," Jared added, as if that explained everything, as if the new title and the bigger paycheck had rewritten the story of their life together. The overhead light reflected softly off his fresh haircut and the polished leather of his shoes. He looked like a man who had stepped straight out of a corporate brochure, confident, composed, successful. Raven carefully placed the plate on the rack. She did not turn around right away. She knew that tone. It was the tone of a man who had practiced his lines in the mirror, who had rehearsed them in the car, who had turned them over in his head until they sounded fair to him. "You heard me," Jared continued. "We need to separate our money. I am not going to carry someone who is not pulling their weight." Raven slowly turned to face him. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of shared bills, shared mornings, shared dreams, reduced to one word that floated between them like a verdict. Freeloader. She studied his face, the small crease of self-righteousness between his brows, the way his mouth pressed into a firm line, as if he was already bracing for her reaction. She let her gaze drop deliberately to the suit jacket he was wearing, the one she had taken to the cleaner last week. She noticed the faint scent of the cologne she had bought him for his last birthday, the one he said made him feel executive. She looked at the watch she had helped him pick out when he got his first promotion. Every detail on him had passed through her hands. "What do you mean?" Raven asked quietly, even though she already understood. Sometimes people needed to hear their own logic out loud. Sometimes the truth sounded different when it was forced into full sentences. "I mean, we need financial independence," Jared said, straightening a little as if he was giving a presentation in a conference room. "My money should be my money. Your money should be yours. We split expenses. We keep things fair." "Fair," Raven repeated. She nodded once, slowly, as if testing the shape of the word. "Okay," she said. Jared blinked. He had been ready for a fight. He had prepared himself for tears, for raised voices, for accusations and guilt. He had imagined defending himself, insisting that he worked harder, that he carried more. He had not prepared for agreement. "Okay," he echoed. He sounded less certain now. "Separate accounts," Raven said. "We split everything 50-50. That is what you want, right?" Relief washed across Jared's face in an obvious wave. His shoulders loosened, his jaw unclenched, and a small, satisfied smile edged its way onto his lips. "Exactly," he said. Raven turned back to the sink and picked up another plate. The water ran over her fingers, warm and steady. What Jared did not know was that she had already started counting. She had been counting for months. Every dollar she paid, every bill she covered, every invisible task she handled while he climbed higher. 3 weeks from now, he would regret every word he had just spoken. But right now, he believed he had won. Raven let him believe it. Jared Lawson had a story he liked to tell himself. In that story, he was the provider, the ambitious one, the man carrying the weight of their life on his back. To him, Raven was just a teacher. A simple job, a steady paycheck, nothing impressive compared to his corporate position at a major logistics firm downtown. That was the narrative he repeated in subtle ways, sometimes jokingly, sometimes with a faint edge. It was also the story his mother loved to reinforce. Evelyn Lawson had a gift for shaping the air around her son. At family dinners, she would beam at Jared and say, "You have always been a hard worker. You were born for success." Then she would glance briefly at Raven, smile politely, and change the subject before anyone could ask about her career. What Jared never bothered to examine was everything behind the surface. Raven taught history and literature at a private high school in Lincoln Park during the day. Her students worked in small seminar-style classes, prepping for honors programs and competitive colleges. But evenings and weekends were when the real money came in. Raven ran her own tutoring business, one she had quietly built from scratch. Wealthy families paid her to prepare their children for advanced placement exams and college interviews. She coached shy teenagers through mock conversations until they could look an admissions officer in the eye. She edited personal statements for children of business owners, surgeons, attorneys. She worked with one girl for months to get her writing from scattered and anxious to sharp and confident. When an acceptance letter from a top-tier university arrived, the girl's mother sent Raven a handwritten note and a check with an extra zero at the end. Some of Raven's clients paid more for 1 hour of her time than Jared spent on a nice dinner with his colleagues. The money went into the joint account without ceremony. There were no announcements, no speeches, no look what I did moments. Raven simply transferred the deposits, logged them in her private spreadsheet, and moved on. She also ran the house. She paid the electric bill before the due date and negotiated when the internet company tried to sneak in higher fees. She tracked subscriptions, gym memberships, streaming services, software Jared used for work. She booked doctor appointments, dentist cleanings, and eye exams, not just for herself but for Jared as well. She handled repairs when the dishwasher made a strange sound or the bathroom sink started to leak. She created grocery lists, planned meals, and made sure groceries actually appeared in the fridge before they ran out of basics. She knew which detergent would not irritate Jared's skin and which brand of coffee he liked best. She kept track of his dry cleaning tickets. She set calendar reminders for his mother's birthday, his father's retirement date, his sister's wedding anniversary. Jared never saw the work. He saw the outcome. Dinner on the table. Lights on. His suits cleaned and hanging in the closet. A social calendar that seemed to organize itself. Gifts that appeared on time and perfectly wrapped. To him, it felt like life was simply functioning the way it was supposed to. While Jared built his career, Raven built the system that allowed him to do it. She absorbed stress so he could focus on his deadlines. She spent money so he would not have to think about it. She ran interference with his family's expectations so he could stay the golden son. But when people stop seeing the system, they start believing the system is free. That was how Jared had come to believe that his life ran on his salary alone. That was how he had come to call the woman who held everything together a freeloader. Raven was about to let him discover how wrong he was. Jared had not come up with the idea of separating their money by himself. It had been planted slowly, almost gently, like a seed watered over time. Evelyn had been whispering into his ear for months. She never called Raven names. She never raised her voice. She simply disguised her opinions as concern. "You work so hard," Evelyn would say over Sunday lunch, her voice smooth and warm as she refilled Jared's glass. "You deserve to enjoy what you earn." She would tilt her head, glance at Raven for half a second, and add, "It is not fair for you to support another adult. You have done enough." She never said, "Raven is taking advantage of you." She did not have to. She simply repeated the same idea in different ways until it started to feel like truth. In Evelyn's world, a wife was supposed to orbit her son, not stand beside him. Men brought home money, and women were supposed to be grateful. When Raven pulled out her card at restaurants or offered to pay for holiday flights, it made Evelyn uncomfortable. It did not fit the picture she wanted. At family gatherings in the suburbs, Evelyn praised Jared for his ambition. "You were born to lead," she would say. "You are going to go so far." She talked about his future, his career, his success. Raven sat at the same table, listening quietly, her contributions reduced to polite nods and sliced pie passed around. When Jared got his latest promotion, Evelyn was thrilled. To her, it was proof that he no longer needed to depend on anyone. She hugged him, eyes shining, and said, "This is your moment. Now you can finally take control of your life." The word that stuck in Jared's mind was control. Control over his schedule. Control over his team. Control over his income. Control over where his money went and who had access to it. By the time he walked into the kitchen and told Raven that the freeloading ended today, he truly believed he was doing something brave. He believed he was standing up for himself. What he did not understand was that he was standing on the very person who had been holding him up all along. When that support disappeared, everything was going to start falling. 2 days later, Raven and Jared sat side by side at a downtown bank branch with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The building was quiet and polished, with soft lighting and a faint scent of paper and coffee in the air. The desks were arranged neatly, screens angled just so, the kind of place designed to make money feel safe and orderly. A woman with short, graying hair and calm eyes approached them. "Good afternoon," she said. I am Angela Rivers. How can I help you both today? We would like to separate our joint account into 2 individual accounts, Jared said immediately. His voice carried that same firm certainty. He had dressed carefully for this, in a charcoal suit and a pale blue shirt, as if he wanted to look as official as his decision. Raven did not rush to add anything. She simply nodded once. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, nails short and clean. Her expression was neutral, almost serene. Angela typed for a moment, then looked up from her monitor. All right, she said. How would you like to divide the current balance? Jared turned to Raven. He expected her to suggest something generous, to say that he should keep more because he earned more, to step back the way she often did in conflicts. He had mentally prepared a speech where he would insist on equality, pretending to be noble while still assuming he would walk away ahead. Half, Raven said. Jared froze. Half, he repeated. 50%, Raven said evenly. That is what fair means. There was a brief silence. The soft clacking of keyboards from nearby desks filled the space. Angela waited, her expression impassive but attentive. Jared glanced at the screen, as if the numbers might rearrange themselves into something more comfortable. When they did not, he swallowed. Fine, he said. Papers were printed. Forms were slid across the desk. Jared signed his name with quick motions, the pen scratching slightly against the paper. Raven signed hers, her handwriting steady and controlled. Their shared account, the one they had created right after their honeymoon, was about to become history with a few strokes of ink. Angela explained how the money would be transferred, how new debit cards would arrive in the mail, how future deposits would go into their separate accounts. And household expenses? Angela added in a professional tone. How would you like to handle those? We split them, Jared said. 50-50. Raven reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Then we should track them, she said. Track them? Jared repeated. A shared spreadsheet, Raven replied. Every grocery run, every household item, every bill. We record it and settle at the end of the month, so neither of us feels taken advantage of. Jared hesitated. This was not the carefree independence he had imagined. He had pictured more spending money for himself, not a detailed account of paper towels and dish soap. But he nodded, not wanting to look unsure in front of the banker. Right there at the desk, Raven opened a new document. She titled it Household Expenses Shared and created columns, date, item, cost, who paid notes. She shared it with Jared's email and watched the notification pop up on his phone. A fresh start, she said calmly. Jared smiled back, but something in his eyes had shifted. For the first time, he felt a small, unfamiliar flicker of unease. He was beginning to sense that what he had set in motion was not a victory. It was a test, and he had no idea how thoroughly he was going to fail it. The changes began quietly. Raven did not slam cabinets or deliver long speeches. She did not argue about the past. She simply stopped doing what she had always done. On the first night after the bank visit, she cooked dinner for herself. She made a simple meal, a pan-seared chicken breast, roasted potatoes, and steamed green beans, and plated it carefully. Then she left a note on the counter next to a covered pot of plain pasta. It said, in neat handwriting, "There is pasta in the pot if you want some." Jared came home late, still buzzing from his promotion meetings. He loosened his tie, expecting to smell dinner in the air, expecting to see plates on the table. Instead, he found the quiet kitchen, the covered pot, and the note. He lifted the lid and frowned. "You did not make sauce," he called out. "I made my dinner," Raven answered from the living room where she sat with her laptop open, finishing feedback on a student's essay. "The pasta is there if you would like to add something to it." He rummaged through the fridge, pulling out Jared's sauce and looking for the right pan. He reheated the pasta even though it was still warm. The noodles stuck together in clumps. When he sat down to eat, the meal tasted bland and slightly overcooked. The next morning, Raven brewed coffee as usual, but she poured only enough for herself into a mug. She leaned against the counter, savoring the first sip as she scanned her email. Jared walked in, rubbing his eyes. "Where is my coffee?" he asked, opening the cabinet where their mugs were stacked. "The beans are in the container," Raven said, nodding toward the counter. "The machine is there. The instructions are on the side if you have forgotten how to use it." He stared at her for a moment, then at the machine as if it were a complicated device he had never seen before. He scooped too many grounds, made the coffee too strong, and took a sip that almost made him grimace. "This tastes terrible," he muttered. Raven lifted her mug. "Mine is fine," she said and went back to reading. Groceries became another surprise. Raven bought what she needed: fresh vegetables, lean proteins, staples that could stretch into multiple meals. Jared decided to do his own shopping. He went to the store after work and wandered the aisles, distracted, tossing random things into the cart: frozen dinners, bags of chips, a box of pastries, 2 different brands of cereal, and a few items he vaguely remembered seeing in their pantry before. When he got home and unloaded the bags, he realized none of it actually formed a complete meal. There was no cooking oil, no spices, no fresh garlic, no onions, no basic ingredients that made food taste like something someone had thought about. By the end of the week, he had spent more on food than Raven had spent in an entire month. The spreadsheet filled quickly. Paper towels, soap, cleaning supplies, snacks, bottled drinks, light bulbs, replacement sponges, trash bags. Jared had never noticed how many small things kept a home running. Now he saw them in bright rows on the screen, with his name in the who paid column more often than he liked. He also had to clean. The first time he decided to do laundry by himself, he tossed dark shirts, light shirts, towels, and socks into one load. When he pulled them out, his favorite white dress shirt was a dull gray, and 2 of Raven's pale blouses had picked up blue streaks. "I did not know you had to separate them," he said, standing in the hallway with the ruined shirt in his hands. "I have been doing it for 6 years, Raven replied. "You never asked how." Jared grew tired, irritated, restless. Not because Raven was cruel, but because for the first time in his adult life, he was responsible for the daily details of his own existence. Responsibility turned out to be heavier than he had ever imagined. Meanwhile, Raven's evenings filled with the quiet efficiency that had always driven her. She sat at the dining table with her laptop open and a notebook beside her, tutoring students over video calls. She listened as a senior named Noah stumbled through a mock interview answer and gently guided him toward clarity. She helped a shy sophomore named Elise restructure an essay until it sounded like her true voice. After each session, she updated invoices, sent emails, and logged payments into her personal records. She smiled to herself sometimes, thinking about how many of those payments had once gone straight into the joint account without Jared ever asking where they came from. 3 weeks after the bank visit, Jared reminded Raven that his sister Serena and her husband Leon were coming for dinner. They were driving in from their home in Oak Park on Sunday afternoon. Serena liked things organized, and they had a long-standing routine. They always ate at 5. They always expected a proper, home-cooked meal. Jared leaned in the doorway of the home office where Raven was reviewing a stack of quizzes. "You know how Serena likes things," he said. "Dinner needs to be ready on time. She has that evening meeting after." Raven did not look up from the papers. "I am not cooking," she said. Jared stared at her back. "What do you mean you are not cooking?" She put her pen down, turned in her chair, and met his eyes. "They are your guests. It is your responsibility, and you now have your own money. You can decide how you want to host them." "This is ridiculous," Jared replied. "You have always cooked when my family came over." "We have separate finances," Raven said calmly. "You wanted independence. This is what it looks like." He did not argue further. Pride kept him from asking her for help. That evening, he went to the grocery store for the first time in years with a specific event in mind. He walked through the aisles thinking, how hard can this really be? 2 hours later, he came home looking exhausted and slightly dazed. The bags he carried were filled with random food: pre-cooked cold cuts, a loaf of bread, a pie that already had a dent in the crust, a bag of salad with dressing he was not sure how to assemble, and a tray of deli chicken that smelled fine but looked unappealing on a serving platter. "How did you do this every week?" he asked as he put items on the counter, frustration creeping into his voice. "I paid attention," Raven said. "I planned. I made lists. I thought about what people would need and how long things would take." On Sunday at 5, Serena walked in wearing a neatly pressed dress and a blazer. Leon followed, carrying a bottle of sparkling water. Serena took one breath and wrinkled her nose. "Where is the roast?" she asked. "I do not smell anything cooking." Jared cleared his throat. "We are doing something simple," he said. "I picked up some things from the store." Serena walked to the dining table and looked down. Plastic containers, store-bought bread still in its bag, deli trays, and a pie in a disposable tin. There was no steam, no aroma of anything simmering in an oven, nothing that said someone had spent hours caring about this meal. "What is this?" she demanded, turning toward her brother. Raven was sitting on the living room couch with a book open in her lap. She looked up once, nodded politely at Serena and Leon, and then went back to her page. Jared swallowed. Raven and I have separate finances now, he said, the words heavier than he expected them to be. She is not cooking anymore. Serena turned fully toward Raven. What happened? She asked. Her tone was sharper than usual. Raven closed her book and set it aside. She did not answer. She simply watched Jared. Under her gaze, he explained everything. The promotion, the conversations with their mother, the freeloading comment, the decision to split the account, the spreadsheet. He heard himself as he spoke and realized how selfish some of his sentences sounded out loud. When he finished, the room was quiet for a beat. Then Serena laughed, short, disbelieving, not kind at all. You and Mom told the woman who runs your entire life that she was a burden, she said. Do you hear yourselves? Jared stayed silent. His ears felt hot. That is unbelievable, Serena said. She turned to Leon. We are leaving. Leon hesitated. We just got here, he said softly. We can eat at home, Serena replied. She stepped toward Raven, leaned down, and kissed her on the cheek. You deserve better than this, she said quietly. Raven's chest tightened for a moment. She nodded once. Drive safe, she replied. The front door closed behind them. Jared stood in the middle of the room. Staring at the table full of food, he did not know how to plate, serve, or make meaningful. For the first time, he saw how alone he had made himself, how the choices that had felt like strength had left him standing on an island of his own making. After Serena left, Raven walked to her desk and pulled out a thick folder. She carried it to the dining table and placed it between the disposable containers. Everything is in here, she said. 6 years of numbers. Jared looked at the folder, but did not reach for it. Raven opened it herself. Inside were neatly organized pages, spreadsheets, printed bank statements, summaries highlighted and annotated. My income, she began. Teaching and tutoring. Over these 6 years, almost $400,000. Jared frowned as if the number were in another language. Housing, Raven continued. Rent, utilities, internet. And the portion I paid beyond half. Over $48,000. His mouth opened slightly. He tried to remember specific bills and found that his memory was blank. Food, Raven said. Groceries, household supplies, gifts for your family, holidays, birthdays. Over $30,000. I also paid your golf membership renewal 3 times when you forgot. That is in here as well. She turned to the final section she had added after he first said the word freeloader. 15 hours a week of cooking and cleaning. 10 hours of managing schedules and family events, booking flights, planning holidays. If I charged even the minimum rate that professional services charge for that kind of labor, it would be nearly $200,000 more. The room went silent. Outside, a car horn sounded faintly on the street. Inside, the only noise was the soft hum of the refrigerator. Jared looked smaller sitting at the table, shoulders slumped, his tie slightly crooked. I did not know, he said finally. You did not look, Raven replied. You did not ask. You did not want to know, as long as everything worked. Jared rubbed his face with both hands. What do you want from me? He asked. The question was not defensive. It sounded honestly lost. Raven closed the folder. I want to be seen, she said. Not just when I am dressed up next to you at your company events. Not just when my income appears in the account and makes things easier. I want my work, my time, my mind, and my effort to be seen. For the first time since this began, Jared understood that the woman he had called a freeloader had been carrying his life on her back, and that weight was finally shifting off her shoulders and onto his. He felt it settle on him like something almost physical. That night, Jared's phone rang. It was his father, Harold. Jared put the call on speaker at Harold's request. The phone sat on the coffee table between them. I heard what happened, Harold said without preamble. Serena called me. Jared stared at the dark television screen across the room. I was just trying to get some control over my money, he muttered. You do remember who planned every birthday, every holiday, every family visit, Harold said. It was not a question. Jared did not answer. It was Raven, Harold continued. She kept this family connected. She made things feel smooth and comfortable. Your mother and I showed up and enjoyed ourselves because someone else did the work. That someone was your wife. Jared swallowed. I did not mean to hurt her, he said quietly. Intent does not erase damage, Harold replied. You took without seeing. That is worse, because it means you were comfortable living in a world where her labor did not count. Harold paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer but still firm. If you want to keep this marriage, You need to learn to value what you have before it is gone. You cannot fix this with flowers and a dinner reservation. You have to change how you live. The call ended. The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. Jared sat on the couch staring at the dark screen, the reflection of his own face looking back at him. Tired, ashamed, suddenly unsure of who he was without the story he had always believed about himself. Jared did not suddenly become a better man. He became a confused one. The next week, he tried to do things Raven had always done. He washed clothes and ruined half of them again, shrinking 2 sweaters and fading a pair of dress pants. He vacuumed the living room and jammed the machine by trying to suck up something too large. He cooked eggs and burned them into the bottom of the pan so badly that Raven had to soak it overnight. "I do not know how you kept up with all of this," he said one night, standing in the kitchen surrounded by dirty dishes and grocery bags. "I had no choice," Raven answered. She was sitting at the table, reviewing notes for the next day's classes. Someone had to do it. Jared began to feel the weight of his own life pressing down on him. Grocery lists, cleaning schedules, bills, emails from work, calls from family, all layered on top of each other. Nothing felt simple anymore. He came home tired in a way he had never been before. Not tired from meetings and presentations, but tired from existing, from the constant need to remember and act. One evening, he sat down at the table and stared at the shared spreadsheet on his laptop. Rows and rows of entries, color-coded by who paid. "This is everything?" he asked. "That is just this month," Raven said. "It is a very small sample." He closed the laptop slowly and looked up at her. "I thought I was carrying everything," he said. "But I was not carrying anything. I was just walking on a road you built." Raven did not respond immediately. Part of her wanted to say, "Yes, that is exactly what you did." Instead, she simply nodded once and picked up her pen. Later that night, Jared sat alone in the living room with a notebook. He started writing a list 3 pages long of things he had watched Raven do over the years and never really considered. Countless grocery runs, late-night lesson planning, tutoring sessions after she had already put in a full day at school, waiting hours for repair workers to show up, organizing family group chats, sending reminders, packing for trips, adjusting their lives around his deadlines. The next morning, he handed her the notebook as she gathered her bag for work. "I was wrong," he said. "I was blind." Raven flipped through the pages. The handwriting was messy in places, like he had been writing faster than his thoughts could untangle. She saw small details that surprised her. The way he noticed she always checked the weather before planning their meals for the week, the way she timed laundry loads around her tutoring sessions, the way she added a snack into her bag for him before events she knew would run long. "Thank you for writing it," she said. Her voice was neutral, but something in her eyes softened by a fraction. She did not forgive him. Not yet. But for the first time, she believed he was starting to understand that partnership was more than a paycheck. 6 months passed. The apartment did not magically become perfect. There were still days when laundry piled up and dishes sat in the sink longer than either of them liked. But Jared was different. He made his own grocery lists now, walking through the store with purpose instead of confusion. He knew which vegetables lasted longer and which spoiled fast. He checked prices and compared brands. He learned how to cook a few simple meals well: baked salmon with roasted asparagus, a chicken and vegetable stir-fry, a pasta dish with sautéed spinach and tomatoes that actually tasted like something someone had cared about. The first time he made dinner that way and Raven came home to the smell of garlic and onion in the air, she paused in the doorway longer than she meant to. He washed clothes in separate loads and set timers on his phone so he would not forget to transfer them to the dryer. He cleaned without being asked, taking the trash out when it was full, wiping down counters, vacuuming the rugs. It did not come naturally, but he did it. Raven no longer reminded him. She also no longer carried him. Jared felt the difference every day, the effort it took to keep a life running. The quiet, unending work that had once been invisible to him was now part of his routine. He started to see it everywhere. In colleagues who mentioned packing lunches for their children, in a neighbor who juggled a stroller, groceries, and a phone call at the same time, in the older woman down the hall who organized the building's holiday potluck every year. One evening, he sat down at the kitchen table and sighed. Raven was at the counter chopping vegetables, her hair tied back, sleeves rolled up. "I do not understand how you did this while also working full-time," Jared said. "Because someone had to," Raven replied. He nodded, the answer landing differently now than it would have 6 months before. For the first time in his life, he respected the weight she had carried, not as an abstract concept, but as something he could finally feel in his own tired shoulders. Evelyn came over one Sunday afternoon. She did not arrive with her usual effortless confidence. She stood in the doorway holding a small box of pastries from a bakery they all liked and looked almost uncertain. Raven met her at the door, surprised to see her without warning. "Come in," she said. Evelyn sat on the couch, folded her hands in her lap, and took a breath. "I was wrong," she said. The words sounded stiff, as if she was not used to arranging them in that order. Raven waited. "I judged you without knowing anything about what you were actually doing," Evelyn continued. "I made you sound small when I spoke to Jared. I implied that you were taking from him when you were giving more than I ever realized." Raven met her eyes. "You did," she said. She did not soften the truth. Evelyn swallowed. "I am sorry," she said. "I was raised to think a certain way about who is valuable in a home. I passed that on without questioning it. I should have asked you what you did instead of assuming. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. But it was real." Raven nodded once. "Thank you for saying that," she replied. Jared watched quietly from the armchair. For the first time, his mother was not in control of the story. Raven was. The axis of the family shifted by a small but important degree. Weeks later, Jared stood in the kitchen one morning making coffee the right way, measuring grounds and water with practiced motions. Raven watched him for a moment from the doorway, her bag on her shoulder, car keys in her hand. They had not gone back to a joint account yet. They had not erased what had happened, and they did not pretend that they had. But they had rebuilt something different, more cautious, more honest. "I was offered another promotion," Jared said, stirring his coffee. He did not look at her immediately. "Already?" Raven asked. She stepped farther into the kitchen and set her keys on the counter. "My director is moving to another division," Jared said. "They want me to step into the role. It would be a big jump. More money. More responsibility. Longer hours, at least at first." "Did you say yes?" Raven asked. He shook his head. "No," he said. "I wanted to talk to you first." That was new. He took a breath. "I do not want success if it costs us like it did before," he said. "I do not want to stand on you again and pretend I do not see it." Raven leaned back against the counter, folding her arms. "I was never against your ambition," she said. "I was against being invisible while you chased it." Jared nodded. "Then if I take this, we have to do it differently," he said. "We can hire help for cleaning once a week. We can look at our schedules and move things around. We can make sure the load is actually shared instead of quietly dumped on you." "That is what partnership means," Raven replied. Later that day, Jared asked about the possibility of going back to a joint account. They were sitting at the dining table, bills spread out between them, the evening light slanting through the blinds. "Only if respect stays," Raven said. "It will," he answered. He did not say it like a promise made lightly. He said it like a commitment he understood would require daily action. Some stories end with someone walking away, a suitcase by the door and a silent hallway left behind. This one did not. It ended with two people sitting at the same table, finally looking at the same numbers, the same work, the same life, and seeing each other clearly for the first time. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.